counterpart from the General Voc Rehab Agency. So again, some of you may have participated in this a year ago, but it's fresh. Hopefully you'll find things that maybe you didn't catch the first time. Maybe there's some new information in this presentation. And one thing that I've noticed even for myself is, getting to participate in trainings sometimes annually is good because I just forget things. So I hope you find value in it today. Kim is going to kick us off. So thanks again. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Morgan. I'm going to go ahead and launch into my screen share. So with that said, yes, the disability awareness topic is a large one. We are covering a lot of material today, and we would like to kick it off by saying welcome, and we're so appreciative of your time. As Morgan just said, presenting today is myself. I am Kim Alejo. I am the statewide workforce and business coordinator for Voc Rehab General, and we'll explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. And on the call today are my colleagues. Our workforce team for VR has grown recently, so it's not just me covering the state. There are 4 regional workforce and business coordinators, and hopefully if you've not met them yet, that you will do so soon. So thank you for having us today. Morgan, do you want to do an intro and then I'll move on?
That sounds good. My name is Morgan Rincon. I'm a business relations coordinator with the Oregon Commission for the Blind. We are a vocational rehabilitation program. I have a certification in rehabilitation counseling, and I am a certified vocational rehabilitation counselor. I started in this field about 16 years ago, and I started at the General Voc Rehab Agency as a specialist with folks who are deaf and hard of hearing and deaf-blind. And then I transitioned over to working at the Commission for the Blind about 8 years ago. So I have had my toes in both agencies, and my counterpart or my partner at OCB, Molly James, she also is a statewide business relations coordinator. The two of us split the state in half, and we support our businesses. And we work very closely with Kim and the VR team because the things that we do are very similar in supporting businesses, and Kim will share a little bit more about that. But that's who we are.
Thank you, Morgan. All right, so kicking it off, talking about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to take a brief few minutes and introduce who we are and what we do. We meaning OCB, standing for Oregon Commission for the Blind, and VR, short for Voc Rehab. So we'll introduce who we are and what our programs do, so you understand who's sharing this information. We will then go into talking about disability etiquette, why it's important and how it can benefit you and help you out in your day-to-day life at work, as well as in the general community. We will touch on accommodations. What are they, and what are some great examples of accommodations at work? And again, that adaptive technology at work. We've got a video to share that's really, really intriguing. It's got such amazing information to learn if you're not used to working in the field of disability on a regular basis. And then we'll wrap it up at the end of our time together by talking about how we can partner and work together. And then we'll take Q&A at the end. So either save your questions or park them in the chat box, and we will circle back around when we're done. So first and foremost, OCB and VR are both state programs, and we have a dual client model. So what that means is we provide services not only to business partners, we provide services to job seekers as well, and that is at no cost to either. And OCB, just as their name suggests, they focus on serving Oregonians who have experienced vision loss, and Voc Rehab serves all other disabilities. And so each program is really robust in that we have a team of professionals, and that team consists of business coordinators such as Morgan and I. And we have both programs have Voc Rehab counselors, assistive technology instructors and experts. And we have access to supplying job coaches on the job to support job seekers or newly hired employees, I should say. And we have employment specialists. And so everybody has very specific jobs that they do in bringing hopefully success to the job seeker and the businesses as we make those connections and support one another. And we ask that you view us as your partner in all things disability. And we focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion of disability in the workplace specifically. So a little bit more about what we do. Morgan, Molly, and I, as well as the rest of VR's workforce team, we partner with businesses. So our focus specifically is serving the business partner. We do things like help them with their recruitment strategies. So how do they outreach to those with disabilities? How do they onboard? How do they provide inclusive interview opportunities? As well as we want there to be focus on retention and promotion as well. We will offer very customized disability awareness trainings. We have a lot of different trainings in the toolbox that we offer businesses, and we customize them to help them achieve whatever goal it is that they want during that training. And most of our trainings are about an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long. And so for those of you that work with businesses, know that we can offer that training or trainings to the businesses that you engage with, and it will always be free to them as well. We can offer business partners work site analysis or assistive technology assessments. So that means an expert goes in and looks at the workplace and sees maybe what kind of changes could be made so it's more inclusive to those with disabilities. And specifically at OCB, they can do assessments on things, talk to a business about software that might be able to be installed on their computers at work to support those with vision loss. We partner with businesses that are government contractors or subcontractors in something that's called Section 503 compliance. And we are also seen as a resource about disability. And sometimes we refer out. We're not the experts on everything, but we do refer. We know who the experts are, and we will refer to our partners as applicable. Within both of our programs, both OCB and VR, we also provide services to Oregonians with disabilities. And so that looks a little bit different. There's a lot of similarities between both our programs, and it also looks a little bit different. So both programs support not only job seekers, but existing employees within an organization that might need some help. Maybe they need some guidance on how to request an accommodation for an employer that they already work for. And so that's oftentimes an unknown. They think sometimes people think that we only work with job seekers, and that's not the case. We support job seekers that are looking to transition from school to work. So meaning youth, we have a youth population that we support. And we provide supports in regards to adaptive technology, meaning what kind of technology can be used in the workplace to make somebody successful on the job. One thing, I'm going to actually pause and back up because I did forget to mention, as far as support to job seekers, we offer that support through Voc Rehab counselors. So not Molly, Morgan, and I and the VR workforce team, but there are vocational rehabilitation counselors within both of our programs. And so the counselors are providing the direct support to the job seekers. And in doing so, they create an individualized plan for that job seeker. And that plan might include maybe some training that they need to get up to speed on so they can be competitive in the workplace. Maybe their plan includes the obtaining of certain equipment that will help them be successful in the career that they want to either return to or maybe move into. And so I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that earlier. So moving on, OCB specifically offers job seekers training on independent living, as well as what they call orientation and mobility, which we say O&M. And so what that is specifically is when it comes to independent living, think about a situation where maybe you've had an accident or you've experienced, some sort of, occurrence that has resulted in you having vision loss. And so you need help maybe restructuring your life, and you need to figure out now how to maneuver through those tasks of daily living. And so OCB would be there to support you in that transition into your new life and staying as independent as possible. And as far as orientation and mobility, that O&M, they have very specific and highly specialized instructors that can teach somebody how to move, and function within their home and within the community, as well as being independent as far as learning how to travel. Think about moving from not being able to just jump in your car as you used to. You have to figure out how to travel, and you have to figure that out with vision loss. And so OCB are offering those additional supports as well. And again, as I mentioned earlier, services that are provided by both of our programs are at no cost, both to job seekers and to the business partners. Transitioning, I would like to start off by saying thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a few things to kick it off. Our goal in this session is that you become more comfortable with the topic of disability. And I consider this training really kind of a twofer. A twofer meaning we are going to provide you hopefully some knowledge and some new skills on how to go about your job, whether your job is working with job seekers or whether your role is working with business partners. We hope to leave you with some new skills and knowledge on how to navigate that in regards to talking about disability. And we also hope that second piece of that twofer is that you are able to be an ally. We want you to be engaging with business colleagues and clients and job seekers and those in your greater community who have a disability. And we want you to be an ally. So we hope that there's a lot of takeaways for you after today's training. So kicking this off with a little bit of statistics, according to the 2010 Census Bureau, there is almost 20% of our entire country's population that experiences a disability. Now, again, that was back in 2010. That does not account for the increase that is stemming from COVID as well. That's almost 57 million people. There's a lot of disability out there because disability tends to be, the majority are not visible. So you can't see it with the naked eye. Disability is our largest minority group in the country. It is definitely a group that any one of us can join at any time, because I believe the statistic is that only 15%, or right around there, people are born with their disability. So the rest is acquired. Yes, there's that statistic. So why are we here talking about disability? Why do we need a disability awareness training? Because it makes us better people, basically, I like to say. But in that regard, we want everyone to be more inclusive of people with disabilities, whether it's at school, it's at work, and in our social circles for sure. We want to help you expand your knowledge because there's a saying that goes like this: when we know better, we do better. And we truly, truly believe that. So disability awareness is key in knowing and doing better. We hope that you will have improved communication skills in engaging with somebody with a disability, as well as engaging and talking about disability in the work that you do. And really important is that we want you to see people, as the individuals that they are, not as the disability that they have. And again, we want you and invite you to become an ally. So pivoting to talking about disability etiquette and language. Today, what we're going to share is basically just guidelines to keep in mind. So when you're engaging with somebody who experiences a disability, what we suggest is a guideline. They might ask you to refer or call them by something different, and that's A-OK. It's always a learning opportunity. So as far as language matters, again, what we're suggesting is a guide. So the terms are not one size fits all, but we definitely start from the foundation that we use person first language, which means we're regarding somebody as the person that they are, not the disability. So if you even had to reference the person with the disability, you say that as opposed to the disabled person, because words matter. The word handicap is out of date. Accessible might be a very common and more up-to-date replacement. And a few other terms we use or reference that somebody might be hard of hearing or deaf, as opposed to saying that somebody is hearing impaired, because the word impaired has a very negative connotation, and it suggests that something is broken. and we don't want to reference that somebody is broken. So we also may say that somebody has low vision or is blind, and we suggest that you use the words challenge as opposed to a limitation, because a limitation is also very negative. And if we say that somebody has a limitation, we may be saying something that is just not true. They may not have a limitation at all, and that might be an unconscious bias that we have. And so we want to get away from using limiting and restrictive words. And so going along with that is thinking about saying something like someone uses a wheelchair as opposed to somebody being confined to a wheelchair. Because being confined is really restrictive, it's negative, it sounds like it's a punishment. And a wheelchair or a cane is absolutely a tool that somebody uses. And if you are tasked with, say you're part of an interviewing team, or say that you are a hiring manager, and if you need to know if somebody has the ability to perform a task that is related to the job that you are interviewing them for, but maybe they have a disability that you can see and you're not quite sure what you can say, it's really easy, because there's a question that you can ask any job candidate whatsoever. And it would be simply something such as, please tell me, or please describe how you would complete the task of, and then fill in the blank of whatever that task is you want to learn more about. Give them the opportunity to explain to you how they can do it, and don't make the assumption that they cannot. All right, Morgan, I'm going to pivot and hand it over to you.
All right. So, just as Kim had said, there's not a one size fits all kind of for terms. The same thing goes for interacting with folks who have a variety of abilities or different disabilities. So take everything you learned today with, just understanding that each scenario you're going to encounter will be completely unique. And we're just here to hope, shed some light and provide some insight and understanding. But what we speak on today is not going to be the law of how to work with people with disabilities. So keep that in mind. What works for one person might not work for another person. And just because one person who experiences a disability and another person who experiences disability, they may have two very, very different experiences in their world. So just keep that in mind. But just some quick examples here. If you do end up working with somebody in your office, maybe who has a variety of the topics that we're going to cover this afternoon, just keep in mind that you might want to refer back to your training, but you also might want to just check in with the individual that you're working with. So for example, some people have mobility limitations. Some folks aren't able to use their limbs. They might not be able to shake your hand. That also goes for somebody who is blind. They might not be able to see you if you extend your hand for a handshake. So if you find yourself in an awkward moment like that, it's okay. It happens. You might say to somebody, hey, I've put out my hand to shake your hand. And if they want to shake your hand, they'll go for it. If they cannot, it's okay to just do like a head nod, or, whatever feels normal or organic to you, to maybe like just do a wave, a hello. Because those things happen, right? And we're not always prepared, and we're not sure what we're going to come across. So it's okay. Be yourself. Be aware of people's reach and or field of vision. So there's another, example of maybe having some papers up on a desk that somebody might not be able to reach up and grab. That might be something to just pay attention to and offer to, hey, can I hand that to you? And if somebody may have loss of vision and they can't see where the paper is, again, it's an opportunity for you to offer to either show them where it's at or hand it to them. And also don't be alarmed if somebody who uses a wheelchair, they may be able to walk. So they may have to use their wheelchair through certain periods of their day. And there may be times where they can get up and walk to the bathroom. And so every single disability that we come across has its very own unique makeup. So just keep that in mind. If and when working with somebody who has vision loss, this is very important and often one of the most misunderstood disabilities, and that vision loss is a spectrum. Blindness is a spectrum. The word blind sounds so definite. It sounds like somebody cannot see. Their world may be full of black and darkness, and that's absolutely not the truth. People who are blind experience their vision loss on a spectrum. It could be the whole array. It could be very, very much a loss of vision, and there could be quite a bit of vision that's still usable. So that, again, keep that in mind. And sometimes people will use a cane, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll only use it to cross the street for safety purposes. Some people who are blind may have a guide dog, but not all people who are blind use guide dogs. So some things to just keep in mind. Another common situation that we hear from people wanting to get disability awareness training is around the language piece. When working with somebody who's blind, sometimes we want to avoid using certain language that we might think is offensive, like using the word see or look. And we're here to tell you that those words are just a part of our normal everyday communication. They're the same words that people who are blind use. So there's no need to try to recreate or come up with a creative term so that you're not offending somebody who's blind. Go ahead and say, hey, did you watch that movie? Or, hey, it's nice to see you. Those are just part of our everyday communication. And it's also okay to use the term blind within a different context. For example, if you want to talk about someone going on a blind date, or if somebody gets blindsided by something, again, that is a very normal and common term to use. So don't feel like you have to avoid that terminology. Something that can be helpful for people who have low vision is when creating documents, use a 12-point font or larger, and be sure that website and other electronic documents are screen reader friendly. So that's something that you might want to work on with somebody within your technology department. And if you have any questions, that is also something that sometimes we get questions from different partners and agencies. They'll say, hey, can you take a look at this document and let us know if it's accessible? And we have staff on board that can, if it's something simple enough, they can take a quick look with their screen reader or their magnification software and say, yes, this works, or oops, no, there's some issues with it. And then we have resources to refer you all to be able to navigate that process. And I don't want to forget, I skipped over a bullet point here about using accurate and specific language. So that is helpful when working with somebody who's blind. So if you are trying, to show them where something's at and you say it's over there is not going to make a whole lot of sense to somebody who can't see what you're pointing at. So, being a little more specific is helpful. Like it's about 2 feet to your right, or using the directions of a clock can be helpful. It's at your 3 o'clock. So those are just some tips to take with you today. The next column that we are going to speak to is around hearing loss. And so people who are deaf and hard of hearing, again, some, for the most part, embrace that language of deafness. It can be part of their culture. It's important to look at folks, and this is, goes for really anybody, but addressing people directly, addressing them and making eye contact with them, and not speaking through their interpreter. So if somebody's deaf and has a sign language interpreter, you don't want to talk to their interpreter and say, hey, how are they? What do they want? You want to look directly to the individual you're talking to and ask them directly, what would you like? Or how can I work with you? And avoid going through that third person talk. It's also important to know that when speaking with somebody who's hard of hearing, they may be trying their hardest to read your lips, and some folks might be really good at it. But the ultimate statistic that I have heard around lip reading is that the best somebody can get is maybe 20% of what you're saying. So just keep that in mind. As much as you think that you're trying to do a very good job of speaking directly to somebody who has hearing loss, they may not be able to understand what you're saying. And it can get even more difficult if somebody has a mustache, or maybe there's other noises going on, or maybe they put, their hands in front of their mouth. Things like that can make it extremely difficult, even more difficult to lip read. If that's all you can do is try to communicate through speaking with each other, you might want to try to rephrase something if they're not understanding you. You definitely don't want to yell. Amplifying your voice might just make it more awkward and actually changes the character of your face. So if you're projecting louder, it might just look to that individual who's hard of hearing that you're angry. And so that's not helpful. So try to find other modes of communication if possible. Maybe even just jotting down notes or finding a way to text back and forth, or email can be really great. And if it is a noisy environment, it might just be helpful to find a quieter space to speak one-on-one. So that can be a tip to take with you. For individuals who experience intellectual and developmental disability, and that term quite often is in our world is called IDD, address individuals directly, like we were speaking about before, and avoid, you going through a third party, like maybe a companion or a parent or a job coach. You really do want to give that person the ultimate respect by communicating directly with them. And it's okay to, break down what you're saying and maybe simplify sentences, but don't try to not use baby talk, because that, also is demeaning. And, folks want to be respected and spoken to in a respectful manner. And avoid making assumptions around somebody's limitations. And that, can be just, natural. We might think, oh, they probably can't, do that. But again, it's all about communicating directly with that individual and letting them set the stage for showing what they're able to do. Here's another one with a spectrum. This is the autism spectrum. Sensory inputs may be overwhelming for folks who experience autism, and finding a quiet space with not a lot of distractions can be really useful. And also note that lack of eye contact does not mean somebody's not engaged. It's just might be part of their disability makeup. It might be really difficult for somebody on the autism spectrum to be able to look or keep eye contact with you. And so if you find that they're looking at the floor or they're looking to the side, they may still be 100% engaged with you, but it is just more difficult for them to hold eye contact. Written communication in advance is really valuable. And that goes for a lot of different things in life. So, especially even for people with vision loss or hearing loss, it is really nice to be able to prepare somebody, especially if they have a disability and they may need a little more time to go through the information or find a different mode to access the communication. It's really helpful to get those things in writing in advance when possible. And, something to think about is accommodations are everywhere. So, we think about, somebody with a disability, they're going to have certain needs, and the employer is going to have to come up with, who knows what. And, to be honest, a lot of us use accommodations in our everyday life, and a lot of us use them at work. Some things can just be as common as an ergonomic desk, ergonomic chairs. I mean, that's just so that we can function more successfully in our work environment. You know, we have those keyboards with the cushion under the wrist to prevent injury. All different kinds of devices exist, and they are certainly accommodations. They're everywhere, and they don't have to be big and fancy. Some of us just need lumbar support on our chair when we're sitting so that we don't have, you know, injury to our spine. Other folks can really succeed through having an anti-fatigue mat, you know, some cushion under their feet, lighting, and maybe adjustments from like outside glare. Those things, very simple accommodations. And then, you know, a lot of us have seen ramps at different, you know, access points of buildings. So accommodations equal productivity. And that's, you know, oftentimes an enhancement for everyone, not just an individual with a disability. So it's really important to avoid assumptions. And what I'd like to say about that is that, like we were saying, everybody is unique, everybody is different. And it's funny because a question that we get a lot is, oh, what's a good job for somebody with a disability? Or what's a great job for somebody who's blind? And that's not a question that we can just straight up answer, because people with disabilities are everywhere and they work in all different types of fields. And that does not change for somebody who's blind or has vision loss. People work where they are skilled and where they have an opportunity, and where they have like the knowledge and, you know, the ability to work. So, you know, it's not like there is a special place that we refer our clients to go find jobs, to go to work. You know, years and years ago, there were such things as sheltered workshops for people who had intellectual and developmental disabilities, but those have long been gone, and people with disabilities are expected to work in what's called competitive and integrated employment settings. And so that's everywhere. That's where we work. It's all around us. And something to think about is that, you know, some disabilities are invisible. And so you also may be working with staff that have disabilities and you don't know it. You may be working with customers who walk in the door that have a disability and you might not know that. And some of those hidden disabilities could be diabetes, heart disease, post-traumatic stress disorder, ADHD, anxiety, chronic fatigue, brain injuries, depression, epilepsy. I mean, the list can go on and on. So just keep in mind that that is just a part of, you know, the human condition. There's different types of disabilities all around us, and people with disabilities can work in any number of you know, employment settings. Avoiding assumptions around communication. So somebody who may have a speech challenge, don't use that as an identifier of their IQ. Absolutely could be no correlation between their speech and their IQ. And again, avoid, you know, the baby talk with somebody who may have a speech challenge. Think about, you know, certain networking events. Sometimes we put on in-person job fairs or meet and greets, and those are not going to be a great environment for all job seekers, and especially those who may experience, you know, anxiety or attention deficit disorder, or you know, autism spectrum, or vision loss, or hearing loss. Like, you know, so somebody who experiences those types of disabilities, they may have a struggle in a loud environment, and that should not be reflective of their performance as a job seeker. And so, you know, keeping that in mind to find other opportunities for networking that might be more more quiet and more personable. So that's a great opportunity to be creative and meet the person where they're at. Some miscellaneous things on this page around avoiding assumptions. Service dogs are not always used for vision loss. And so we sometimes question, why does that person have a dog? And service animals are used for a number of different disabilities. Some individuals need part-time work. It just fits better with their schedule and maybe their physical or mental needs. So be flexible. And this is something that we speak to employers about. And it has been a kind of like a place that we're pivoting with hiring managers around the thought of being a little more flexible around scheduling and creating maybe where there was a full-time job, cutting it in half and having two part-time jobs or work shares. So those are great opportunities, because if an employer is very rigid on their scheduling needs, sometimes they'll really miss out on a qualified dynamic employee. All right, we're moving into the slide about spectrum of vision loss. And I was speaking to this earlier. Folks who are blind, the people who are considered blind, 80% of those folks have some amount of usable vision. Now, it's like 20% or less of people who are blind have who are completely blind. Those with a certain amount of vision, they have there's a whole gamut of reasons somebody has vision loss, and it could be injury, illness, and or different kind of congenital disorder that they were born with. And that causes folks to have a very unique and different experience with their vision loss. Some people have tunnel vision and can see very clearly in the central part of their eye, as where folks may have the opposite, where they can't see in the middle of the eye, but they can see the peripheral. So some folks who are blind can read print, but will not always have the ability to see people coming toward them in the hallway. There's such thing as night blindness, and this is true and real. Somebody may have the ability to function with sighted techniques throughout the day when there's enough light without glare. They may be able to see shapes and colors when the lights are on, but as the evening comes, things get darker and it is much more challenging to see. So describes that concept of vision loss as a spectrum. The next slide, I believe, is another visual here of what somebody might experience with macular degeneration, and that is the loss of the central part of their vision. So objects are obstructed and unclear. In this case, there's two photos. The one on the left shows two kids, each holding a ball, and they, one has the arm around the other. It's, to somebody with 20/20 vision, they can see that quite clearly, the faces of the children, the color the balls are holding, what kind of shirt, one has a striped white and blue shirt. And then somebody with vision loss, specifically macular degeneration, they can see that there's maybe two people there holding a ball, but you can't see their face, you can't see what they're wearing. So it is really hard to identify maybe who you're talking to, or who or what is right in front of you. Around accommodations, it's a reasonable adjustment to a job or work environment that makes it possible for an individual with a disability to perform their job duties. And here's where these assumptions come into play, is that a lot of folks assume that accommodations are going to be costly. And the fact is that most accommodations are very low cost, as we talked about earlier on that list of just real commonly used tools that some of us use at our workplace. Very inexpensive, very common. The Job Accommodation Network states that employers reported in a study, 56% of the accommodations they have purchased cost absolutely nothing, while, you know, sometimes a typical cost may be around $500. And that's more than half of, you know, employers, you know, responses that accommodations are really quite easy to obtain and to purchase. So, and if, you know, if an individual is finding that their accommodation needs are going to be more significant, that's a great place to have a conversation with Voc Rehab or Commission for the Blind, because there's a reason that we exist to help our job seekers and help our business partners. And a lot of times employers aren't going to know what the accommodation will be or what that individual will need. A lot of times the individual themselves will know when they come in the door, but they don't always know either. And so again, that's a really great place to have a VR counselor intervene and provide some expertise around what accommodations can be provided to that individual, and or where to even purchase certain accommodations that will be unique to that person's needs. So a lot of resources exist out there. We're going to just briefly talk here about adaptive technologies for individuals with vision loss. This is very specific to the Oregon Commission for the Blind. We have instructors, we have an entire training center, and instructors work with individuals on all different types of technology needs so that an individual can use their cell phone, use all the apps on their phone, you know, use their computer and take notes and interact with email and Word and, you know, Excel, everything pretty much that, you know, that we use on the job. Those things are accessible through different ways with technology. And so we have a BuzzFeed video that we would like to show. And it's a lot easier for you all maybe to listen and learn rather than have me talk about what these accommodations do and what they look like. And so this is just a really, I think, fun video to watch and learn about different adaptive technologies for people with vision loss. There's a couple of, since it's a BuzzFeed video, there are a couple of ads, I believe. So just be patient with us. And I think, Kim, you're going to cue up the video.
BuzzFeed News editor Ellen Cushing sits between a lamp and a bamboo plant at a wooden table in front of a gray backdrop.
I'm an editor for BuzzFeed News here in San Francisco. I'm also legally blind, so in my personal life and in my professional life, I've spent a lot of time thinking about accessibility in tech.
Ellen sits on Muni looking out the window. Ellen waits at a Muni stop. Ellen talks to camera from inside the Muni.
I cannot drive, which means I often take public transportation, but I also take rideshare. It's completely changed my life.
Ellen sits inside a Muni car typing at her phone while people board.
My life was very, very different before Uber and Lyft existed.
Ellen, still on Muni, now sits next to a metal railed window and looks at her phone.
Can't see very far. I have really bad depth perception. I have really bad peripheral vision.
Cut back to shot of Ellen at wooden table in front of gray backdrop.
Bump into things a lot. I don't have the same abilities that most people have, even people who wear glasses and things like that. Apple gave us access to some of its visually impaired users, and we talked to them about what their lives are like.
Cut back to Ellen sitting at the back of Muni smiling at her phone as she types away.
Frankly, it's a civil rights issue. There are 1.3 million visually impaired people in the United States. It's really important that they be able to use the same products that the rest of us do.
Close up of Ellen's hands as she fills out boxes on a crossword puzzle on her phone. Cut back to Ellen on Muni talking to camera.
Technology can really enrich and change the lives of people with physical and mental disabilities.
There are 3 blue chairs placed in a room looking over Civic Center in San Francisco. Tiffany Taylor is sitting in the middle chair.
I am primarily a accessibility consultant, and I'm really passionate about making arts more accessible, adding in audio description, sign language, touch tours, and those types of things.
Tiffany now sitting on an ottoman in front of a TV. She's holding an Apple TV remote.
Turn on voiceover.
Voice hidden figures. Playing. We see the back of Tiffany's head with the TV in front of her as she watches the movie.
Catherine?
She looks at him, startled.
Have a go at it? He hands her a fresh piece of chalk, holding out his hand loosely. Her hand takes the chalk and she pushes away from the table.
Cut back to shot of Tiffany sitting on the ottoman as she talks to camera.
So that's just a sample of the audio description. This scene is pretty visual, and so it really gives a lot of feedback about the expressions and sort of the visual, nonverbal kind of communication that's going on. Not just describing action, but it's also describing expression and sort of the tone of the scene that you wouldn't get otherwise. There are some mixed views on that, but I think it's very helpful.
Haben Jerma is wearing a red dress with a Braille keyboard resting on her lap as she sits across from BuzzFeed News video producer Allison Luckian, who has a little table with a QWERTY keyboard placed in front of her.
My name is Haben Gurma, and I'm trained as an attorney. I'm a non-traditional lawyer in that I focus on teaching companies and organizations, schools, nonprofits to see the value of disability inclusion.
Haben talks towards Allison's direction. Behind her is a view of City Hall in San Francisco.
A lot of people have misconceptions about disability, so I help teach them and help advocate for greater access for the disability community.
Haben is talking to camera.
I have 2 Braille displays out right now, just so we can do the demo.
Cut back to shot of Haben smiling and as Allison types on QWERTY keyboard.
I said, interesting. Can you tell me how it feels?
I could also let you feel it.
Allison types how that works too. Haben smiling turns her Braille keyboard around in Allison's direction. Allison inches her way towards the edge of her seat to get closer to the keyboard. Cut to a shot of the Braille keyboard as Allison types on the QWERTY keyboard.
Oh, cool. So when I type, there's little pigs on there that's moving.
Cut to a shot of Haben's hands as her right finger schemes across the cursor keys on the Braille keyboard.
So keyboard at the top for typing data, not cursor keys. They're navigation thumb keys on the bottom. They're connected through Bluetooth.
We see Haben's iPhone next to the Braille keyboard connected by Bluetooth.
Everything on the screen appears in Braille. I'm navigating using voice-over hand gestures on the phone, and whatever's on the phone shows up in digital Braille.
Haben talking to Allison.
With haptics, I get a buzz when I get a message, because I wouldn't have my phone on me because I like wearing dresses and don't have pockets, but I could still stay connected and know when someone's trying to get my attention.
We see Haben's iPhone next to the Braille keyboard.
I think this will encourage more people to make their apps accessible and their videos and pictures accessible.
We see a video post from Haben's Instagram. Haben and Maxine are standing in front of a 1911 steam train.
Captions help deaf individuals access videos.
Instagram post of Haben on blue paddleboard. She's holding a tall paddle in both hands. Behind her is a beach with large sand-colored houses.
And image descriptions help blind individuals access pictures.
Instagram post. Haben is reading from a Braille display connected to her MacBook Air. Behind her is a grassy field with soccer nets and trees.
So when you post videos, add captions, add audio descriptions.
Haben back in interview room talking to camera.
And add image descriptions for your photos so everyone can access your story.
Jordan Castor sitting in the middle of a big leather couch in the lobby of her apartment complex. On each side of the couch are 2 pillows. One larger one designed with leaves and a gray pillow resting in front of it.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I work at Apple on the Accessibility Design and Quality team.
Jordan is now outside of her apartment building standing on the sidewalk. She clutches her cane with her biceps as it rests on her while she holds up her iPhone and navigates through it with both hands.
The normal speed that I listen to voiceover. So it looks here like we have an L coming in 7 minutes. And now I'll slow it down.
45%. KT line Ingleside/3rd. Direction inbound to Sunnydale/Bayshore. Next departure L line.
Jordan holding cane walks toward camera through a construction walkway.
When I'm navigating, I'm listening a lot to what's going on in my environment.
Jordan is now walking the halls of the Muni station. Jordan walks through the Muni gates. A Muni metro train pulls up to platform. Jordan walks toward the opening doors and gets in.
I had a flip phone. There was a screen reader that was on the phone a little bit. It didn't read all the menus. It might only read 2 levels in, or it might just read my text messages. And so I really didn't have access to the full capabilities of the phone that I had.
Cut back to Jordan at leather couch in her lobby.
I also had, a separate device for taking notes. Many documents, many of my books were in hard copy Braille.
Jordan is standing up against the wall of a Muni train. The Muni stops and its doors open as Jordan exits.
Now I could have my books, my textbooks, on the iPhone and carry a Braille display.
Close up of Jordan's face. Her cane is in the shot, and in the background we see people walking the courtyard.
Blind Square is really awesome because it allows me to build the mental map of San Francisco by telling me what's around me and the various intersections as I'm walking.
Jordan walks down Market Street in San Francisco. Jordan now at a busy crosswalk. The crosswalk changes and Jordan crosses. She is surrounded by a ton of people crossing the street.
Bank, First Republic Bank. 145 feet.
Jordan at Blue Bottle Coffee is talking to the cashier. A man next to her is standing making coffee drinks. Behind the cashier, there are coffee bags stacked on shelves. A woman is making drinks behind the cashier.
2 iced mochas, please.
Yeah, sure. And 92 total, please.
Jordan holds up her iPhone, the screen curtain turned on.
Home indicator. Chase. Now. Chase green alert. Home.
She holds it down to the square reader. The square reader flashes 4 green lights. Jordan pulls her phone off the reader and the transaction is complete.
Awesome, Jordan. Thanks so much. It'll be up on your left very shortly.
Sounds good.
Jordan sits at a table outdoors in the middle of a courtyard. Behind her is a fire pit where people are sitting.
Sometimes people will even say, excuse me, ma'am, you're using your phone and it's not turned on. And that's really funny because my phone is on, the screen is just turned off.
Jordan holds up her phone as she walks us through accessibility and apps.
So if I triple tap my phone with 3 fingers,
Screen curtained on.
people cannot see my phone. I can still use it,
Camera. Maps. Camera.
but the screen is completely blank. So it gives me an added layer of privacy. One of the apps I also really enjoy using on my phone is called Money Reader. And this will identify bills just by holding them in front of the camera.
Jordan holds a $5 bill up to her iPhone camera.
$5.
I know what money I have. And so it's just another tool of these technology tools that I have that allows me to be more independent and efficient with everyday tasks.
Cut back to Jordan at leather couch in her lobby.
All this technology just really opened up many doors and many opportunities that were not there.
Cut to a shot of Jordan's hands as she types on the Braille keyboard feature on her iPhone.
While it's wonderful and it's amazing to have, it's a supplement to the skills that a blind person needs to have to live a full and independent life.
Cut back to BuzzFeed News editor Ellen Cushing at a wooden table in front of a gray backdrop.
Now, we still have a really, really long way to go. I know in my daily life, I get frustrated all the time by tech and user interface design that's just not inclusive. Definitely go on websites that are just not built for someone to blow up the font to 18 points. Certain apps being broken for voiceover for a really long time, or the AI that identifies photos just not working. So we still have a really, really long way to go, but I'm really heartened that companies are working on this.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I really do love that video. I hope you enjoyed it too. It is neat to see the different tools and technologies that folks are able to use. It's also fun to see the 3 different people in the video and the different types of work they do. One is a news editor, another is an attorney, somebody works at Apple. But we see folks do all different kinds of things. Like even here in Oregon, I actually pulled up recently some data around what our job seekers, what their vocational goals are, and it's a little bit of everything. We have the majority of folks want to work in customer service, right? Currently have 110 vocational plans at the Oregon Commission for the Blind for customer service, but there's folks that also have plans for production, office administration, social services, teaching, massage therapists, computer programming, the list goes on and on. We have another video that's within our resource list that you'll find later in this presentation. And that video is one that Commission for the Blind recorded a couple years ago. And that follows 3 different places of employment in Oregon where we have individuals working, and they're really quite different. Like one of them is a manufacturing business where somebody's making tools, making hand tools. Another one is a computer programmer, and then the other one is working in a grocery store. So people with disabilities and people who are blind work in all different types of work environments. Just another side note I find really, really fascinating is that Amazon, there's several locations in like the Portland area and one in Salem. They have come up with a way to really provide wraparound services for their employees with vision loss. They in fact created a whole accommodations team in Texas for people with vision loss. And so when people in Oregon want to apply for Amazon in their warehouse, moving boxes and working around conveyor belts and forklifts and what have you, there is accommodations in place to support individuals with who are blind. We have individuals completely blind working in Amazon because they've come up with a way to even use this technology where somebody has these glasses and the glasses connect to almost like an operator, and that operator can see what that person is looking at. and the operator can explain it to the person who's blind, what they're doing, what they're looking at. Maybe they're looking at a package and a label, and they're, figuring out where it's going to go in the green bin or the red bin. And so, gosh, technology's come a long way, and it is really making a lot more opportunities for people with disabilities. So I just thought that was a fun thing to add. All right, so we are all part of the WorkSource system, right? And the Vocational Rehabilitation and the Commission for the Blind, we work with you all, and we work together to ensure job seekers have access to the programs that are within our umbrella at the WorkSource system. So we really do, the important part of this is the partnership. So being able to communicate and connect with each other to support our job seekers, people with disabilities, so that they have equal access to the services and the opportunities that the general population of customers coming through the door have. We're here to work together to make that possible. Our teams, the workforce and business relations team at OVR and OCB, we collaborate with the WorkSource Oregon's business service teams around the state as well, because we are doing a lot of outreach and communication with businesses and employers. And so that's just one place that we really notice that we want to have some continuity on when reaching out to businesses. So we're really mindful about how that works in different areas around the state. And we just want folks to know, maybe some of you do direct outreach with businesses. And so just keep in mind that when you're engaging with a business, that your conversations around qualified job seekers can include talking about job seekers who may have disabilities, making sure to speak about job seekers with disabilities as qualified and skilled individuals. And also, remember us as your partner and resource. So if and when it's, useful and necessary, introduce VR and OCB as a disability resource for the businesses and the partners that you are all working with. All right, I think I will finish up on this slide here. We have shared customers, and clients of OCB or Voc Rehab, they're assigned a VR counselor, and that counselor has a plan, an individualized plan for employment with that individual. So within that plan, there is a multitude of services. So if you're working with somebody who has a VR counselor, it's very important that you connect with that counselor and communicate with each other and collaborate. It's great to find a way to braid services when possible, because, we want to make sure that we're not duplicating services. We want to make sure that, whoever it is providing the best resource for that service. And again, I think a lot of synergy and creativity and power can happen when we collaborate. So if you're working with a job seeker who has a VR counselor, ask them, if you can have a release to talk to that counselor, because I think that's a really, really important part of their plan. And just so you all know, we work with individuals up until their point of placement and employment. And we follow them for 90 days to make sure that they're stable and successful in that place of employment, and then they're closed. So we don't work with individuals forever. At some point, we have to wrap up the case, and we typically make sure that that is, all the things are in place before we close that vocational file. So, but then again, if somebody does go to work and something comes up down the road, it is quite common and quite simple for VR OCB to be able to reconnect with that individual. So just keep that in mind too, that it's not like one and done. We've placed someone, we're done with them. They're always welcome to return to our agencies for return services. So, How do you refer somebody? On the screen here, we have our two different agencies listed. For the Commission for the Blind, for this region of, Central and Eastern Oregon, we have one regional office that serves the entire region. Everybody on this call, we have one office in Redmond and one counselor, and she is covers a lot of ground, obviously. So the number is on the screen if you would like to get a hold of the VR counselor in the Redmond or the Central and Eastern office of OCB. Voc Rehab has 3 different offices listed here with their phone numbers, one in Central Oregon in Bend, another in the Columbia Gorge in the Dalles, and down in Southern Oregon in Medford. So the best way to refer is to make contact with those phone numbers directly, and then the staff who answers will be able to direct you in getting that referral made. And then of course,
Morgan,
yes.
It's Kim. I was just going to add that Courtney Gibson, our branch manager in Bend, has added to the chat box. Another way to refer is through the general information. If you prefer to go through email, she has parked the email address in the chat box. So find the note by Courtney Gibson, and there's an email address there also. Thank you, Courtney.
And I can email that out to all the attendees afterwards too, just so everybody has it if you haven't grabbed it from the chat.
And Brenda, I can also add that to this slide and then send you the PowerPoint slides to send out to everybody as well, if that's easiest.
It sounds fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. Morgan, would you like me to move to the next slide?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And it looks like this one is back to me anyways.
All right.
All right, thank you so much, Morgan. We're going to wrap this up. Phew, I know it's been a whirlwind of information. We're not quite done. We will definitely get to time for a Q&A, and I see some comments in the chat box. But we wanted to make sure that when we send out this PowerPoint that you know how to contact us specifically. And you also have some resources as takeaways, because this, hopefully, if this is your first meeting of us, this is the start of a very long and mutually beneficial partnership. But the OCB contacts, Morgan and Molly, are both up there on the screen with email addresses and phone numbers, as well as mine. And like I said, I am one of 5 on our workforce team. I'm the statewide contact, and then we have regional. So if you're not sure who to start with, just go ahead and send a message to me, Kim Alejo, and that's how you reach us. Now, this is a page with a lot of information, but it's all great stuff that we hope will help you both in the work that you do, no matter whether you work with job seekers or you support business partners. These are also some resources that you can pass to those business partners. So again, OCB has a webpage, and I want to draw your attention to that there are two subcategories under that OCB heading. One is called Cited Guide Technique. So if you are a guide and you have your site and you are acting as a guide and to somebody who has vision loss, that shows you can follow that link and see a really cool video on how to guide somebody maybe through a building. Maybe they're coming in for an interview and you need some hints and tips on how to do it skillfully, because it does take practice. There's also a video, a link to a video, and I think Morgan referenced that earlier. We have Voc Rehab's link to our page. And within that, there are services to both businesses and job seekers on that page. I would like to draw your attention to the link to the Job Accommodation Network, which we refer to as JAN. And JAN is an amazing resource regarding accommodations. So for your knowledge, for any businesses that you work with, and even for job seekers on how to request an accommodation, there's so much information at the askjan.org page. What's really cool is you can type in a disability and it'll bring up a list of accommodations for that disability. But like Morgan mentioned earlier, it's very, very individualized, but it's just a great way to start learning about disabilities, about learning about accommodations in the workplace. And I highly suggest you spend some time at the askjan.org website. The Northwest ADA Center is also a wonderful resource, both to individuals and to businesses. They are experts in their field on the Americans with Disability Act. They provide information, training, guidance. They answer the phones if you call in and have a question. They may refer you out if applicable, but they are a wealth of information as well. And then finally, the last resource on that page is the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which also provides information and technical assistance regarding preventing discrimination in the workplace. So lots and lots of information on that screen and on that page to help you all both in your jobs, no matter whether you work with job seekers or you work with business partners. And we are going to wrap this up. For those of you that who have engaged with me before, you know I am a huge quote fan. This is one of my favorites regarding to disability, so we wanted to share it with you. And it goes like this: there is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. And that's by Robert Hensel. So we will wrap things up. We're going to take questions. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen now because the rest of the time is really dedicated to you. And hopefully, if you have not recognized this so far, I just want to state what we hope is the obvious, but we are a really safe place to ask questions. We are here to support you and help you, and no question you have is, there's no dumb questions per se. There's no terminology that you will use that it will throw us, offend us. We won't giggle at, we've heard it all. And so we're your safe place to ask whatever it is that you want to ask. So I'll scan the chat box as well. Morgan, I don't know if you've had a chance to do that, but I'll see if there's any questions in there as well. But
Kim, I do know, sorry, Kim, I do know that a while back when we first started, there was a question, does OCB rep, sorry, is there an OCB rep in Klamath Falls area who speaks Spanish?
To answer that question, no, we have one counselor that serves Klamath Falls. Actually, her office is in Medford. That's Jane Hagel. So nope, but we do have a Spanish-speaking counselor out of our Portland office. And now that we're doing things, more creatively with remote work, there is possibility for maybe some connection there. So if you would like to reach out to us, we could try and help, meet those needs that you're looking for.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I also see a question by Kristen in the chat box. Can you please email out these resources to all of you? Yes, we will just send you the whole PowerPoint, and then you have the whole gamut. Would anybody like to unmute and ask a question?
Hi there. I'd like to ask a question. Lori Harrer. I have a job where I work with youth and help place them at jobs throughout the local community. And one resource actually is I've been hooked up really well with the local special education group at the school. And I'm helping a lot of folks who are youth who have mental and cognitive disabilities. A lot of them are on the autism spectrum, but some have some other things going on. And one challenge I found is when placing these youth at different businesses, some businesses are great. They already know what they're doing. They understand how to interact, but what resource or pamphlet or video or even just like top tips could I maybe give to some of these businesses who haven't worked with these youth in order for them to feel more comfortable interacting with them? Because a lot of these folks are super high functioning. They're ready to join the workforce. Some of these businesses are a little uncomfortable with that.
Lori, that is such a great question. And thank you so much for it. One thing I would offer up most immediately is it might be an opportunity to introduce, just by a verbal explanation, that there is VR and OCB that is a resource, and not a resource to business that's not a cost to them for disability awareness training. And we train, we can do an hour training for hiring managers. So we'll do a training for, say, an HR staff if it's a larger company. If it's not, maybe it is all of the upper management within an organization, because you're right. Every business, and since we engage with business in our roles, every business is on a very different part of the path towards diversity, equity, and inclusion of disability. And so, and oftentimes they don't know what they don't know, right? And so when we offer the disability awareness training, it's definitely an eye opener. We can also offer trainings towards, if there's going to be at a department, or if a department has hired somebody with a disability, and that disability has been disclosed by the individual, and maybe they're open to, maybe there's been a conversation with that new employee that, yeah, it would be great to have the department go through a disability awareness training to learn how to interact and work together. We can do that. Morgan, what else can you think of? So I instantly think of introducing us as a resource to business, which is free, and that disability awareness training. We're actually in the midst also of making final improvements to a joint flyer that is joint between VR and OCB, that is what's called services to business, that we will be able to provide to all of you. So you have this tool to give us to the business, saying, gosh, you know what, we work with these two programs. They're amazing. They do, these trainings, and these are the other services that they offer. I want to leave this with you. We'll have both an electronic version and a print version coming very, very soon, probably within the next week or two, I would imagine. So we'll make sure we send that out and get that to you as well. But Morgan, what would you like to add?
Yeah. Hi, Lori. What a great question. What I wanted to share is that there's a lot of great resources out there. And so you may want to just spend some time looking up, Googling different things. Like there's a video, we have one in this presentation that you can use too. It's the one that I spoke about, where we kind of followed 3 different individuals at their work sites and videoed them doing their work. So it's kind of like aha, that's what somebody who's blind looks like. They look like anybody else doing their job. But we also found one that's really neat. It's like it's a cartoon, and it's like, how do you work with somebody who's blind? And it walks you through this whole scenario, and it's just really helpful. It like breaks down those fears and those questions that people have. And I'm sure there's a ton more information that exists out there. So you might want to just kind of start looking around for your own resource box to be able to use something like that. Of course, you are welcome to reach out to us, because we may have some different things in our toolbox too that we'd love to share with you. And also another thing that, maybe consider is helping the students that you work with really be like confident and empowered to talk about their skills and abilities too. And that's something that we do with the job seekers that we work with, is being able to know their strengths, know their abilities, and be able to speak to those with confidence. And I think it can be, even more challenging maybe for a youth, somebody who's just getting used to the world of work, but it's definitely a part of that process. People being able to advocate for themselves. It's part of the process too. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that does help. Yeah, I'll try to find some. Yeah, the trainings would be great, but I feel like telling a business who I'm already kind of like, hey, take this kid, they're going to be great, to then also be like, oh, and you and all your employees have to do an hour-long training, probably would kill the opportunity for the youth, which is, the opposite of what we're going for. So having shorter videos and stuff like that, I think is a lot more useful. So I'll definitely do some Googling. Thanks.
Yeah. And Lori, I will say that, you're kind of in a neat place now where you have some knowledge that you can share. That's maybe all of our roles here. When we know better, we do better. And part of that is sharing with our communities. And there's times where you'll work with employers who just have a little harder time understanding. And that is just going to be natural. There's not like one button we can push to make them understand. But again, that's just part of the process.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, and one thing that also came to mind, Lori, near the end here is that as far as, and it's all, like we talked about, words are so important, and it's all about, how we talk about whatever it is that we're talking about. And so instead of instead of a conversation around, in hiring some of the youth, then you would have to have to spend this hour. It might be an opportunity to say, gosh, to the business person, you may not know this, but statistically speaking, about 20% of our entire country has a disability. Most of them you can't see. So with that, you may have upwardly of 20% of your existing workforce with a disability, and you just don't know it. And so that could, you might be excited to know that there are free training opportunities hosted by, these two programs that you can learn more and how to be a more inclusive employer. And that sets the stage for more internal success and satisfaction within your existing employees. So it's a matter of, and it's not twisting, it's really setting the stage for, here's how you can do better and what opportunities are there to support you in doing better. But those statistics can be super helpful.
And I just want to call out a comment in the chat that Jennifer Turner left, saying that working with special ed 12th graders, she's found that job shadowing was really valuable for employers and job seekers. She's also had great luck introducing employers to the JAN resource that you all were mentioning, which is one of the websites that'll be shared in the presentation. That site provides ideas of what job accommodations can look like.
Thank you, Brenda. I agree that, when all of us can be a resource to business. So if it's just a matter of we have an exchange with them and we say, oh gosh, there's this website, probably would, open your eyes to lots of opportunity. Here's the name of that website. You've just added value to you as a partner to that business. And it's really, really helpful. So yes, know your resources, and when what's out there to refer to business is really, really valuable.
Well, I just want to thank both Kim and Morgan and Molly, who I know helped put this together too and helped plan. Thank you all so much.